Streets 993, your choice of hip hop and R&B, C-Dub, and I'm back up in here. And if you don't know who this man is, I'm gonna reintroduce you to him again. His name is Marcus Johnson. Pay attention. Google him. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that right there. Okay, my man is here with Johnson Capital Planning on the show today, giving us some information about how to take your finances the right way and do something good with them. Marcus, give us, thank you again for being on the show again today, man. Thank you. Yes, brief introduction again for the people who missed you on the last one. They can catch you a little bit about you and who you are and where you're from.
For sure. Again, my name is Marcus Johnson from right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Graduate of the great Tennessee State University.
Go Be Blue.
Yes, sir. Got a degree in economics, was able to parlay that into a job on Wall Street, so worked there a few years, and then decided that I want to do something a little bit more to help, our community learn and understand about how money works. And so I started my firm, and here we are.
That's what's up, man. On the last show, we talked about budgeting basics, and on this show, I want us to give some information on how can families financially plan for themselves? I'm a husband, 4 kids, a wife, so it's really impactful for me to know as a leader for my family, how should I be setting a standard at my house for my household. So on the show today, hopefully you can give us some tips. I had a couple of people DM me on Instagram.
For sure.
And let's just get off into it. So what are some financial steps should new parents take to secure their family's future?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I really tell people that, one thing I want to make sure that people understand and get from there is that there's not a one size fits all.
Okay.
Right. So, I know that a lot of the financial gurus, they try to make everything seem like every advice that they're giving is going to be for every family. Right. And so I tell people that when it comes to finances, it's got to be tailored to your specific situation.
Right.
Right. Now, some of the rule of thumbs is that when we think about becoming a new parent, we got to think about the fact that if something were to happen to you, now what is that going to do to my family situation, right? So one of the first boxes I like to make sure that people understand is that you got to have some type of protection box, right? So that can be making sure that you have some type of life insurance. Not going to go into the specifics of what type of insurance, right? That's a whole nother conversation, right? But just making sure that your family is set up in the event that something were to happen to you, right? Because if that income goes away, I think people don't realize is that once your income is gone because you passed away, it's gone forever. Right. So just understanding that we need to make sure that if we're living in a household where both of our income streams are important to our household, if one of those goes away, we need to make sure that we're able to account for that. Right. So having some type of protection vehicle in place. Right. Okay. The next thing I would tell you is, when we're thinking about our family's future, right, having an idea or understanding of what we actually want our family's picture to look like. Right. Are we wanting to, make sure that we have a savings for our kids' college if that's something that we want to do? If we want to make sure that, we want to leave a legacy for our kids, right? So it really just goes into, having an idea of what's important to you and then starting to kind of picture it from there or filling the gaps from there, right? Versus it just being, hey, let me just have these few vehicles, right? No, let's figure out where we want to go, right? What's the blueprint, right? What is our financial vision statement for our family, right? So, I would tell every household that think about it from the standpoint of what is my financial vision statement? Like, what are we trying to do, right? And then start to kind of peel back from there.
Okay, are you seeing a lot of families out of 100%? How many? What is the percentage you would say of people who don't even have a blueprint?
A lot, right? I can't give you a percentage because I don't know off the top of my head, but I know most of the time people they are real general in their thinking or their statements when it comes to their finances, right? So we're not really getting specific on it, right? So the question may be, or the goal may be, hey, I want to pay off all my debt. Right. And I would challenge them to say, instead of saying, let's pay off all my debt, get a number attached to it. Right. So I'm going to pay off $100,000 of my debt. Right. So now we're making it real. We're putting in a actual number, an actual goal that could be measurable that we're trying to get to. Right. Because now we could take that $100,000 and break it down. Right. Figuring out, all right, well, tackling this debt, I'm starting here, right? I'm gonna start with the credit card with the highest interest rate, right? Because that's costing me the most money, and then kind of tailoring it right that way. And so, that's really where I think financial planning for your family and yourself should start, is just getting more specific on what those goals are, whether that's paying my debt off, whether that's saving for retirement, right? Let's get a little bit more granular in those ideas about how we want to make this stuff work.
How would you say someone need to save for their child's future?
Yeah, so again, I love to make it where you can kind of think about it, right? Because my job as an advisor is not for me to tell you what to do, but to get you to start to think about, framing your ideas about what makes sense for your family, right? So if the idea is you're saying, hey, I want to start saving for my kids' college, right? Then, there's vehicles that can do that, right? So some of the good ones would be 529 plans. A lot of people like those, right? We can talk specifics on those at a later date, right? You got UTMA and UCMA accounts, right? Which stands for Uniform Gift to Minors Act or Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, which are basically just custodian accounts for kids where now they can invest into the stock market, et cetera. I tell people to be cautious on those because those, when it comes to getting FAFSA, it can count against you from a tax standpoint. So, but be careful, right? But those are options. Or a lot of times people will look at doing an IUL to fund kids' colleges, right? Because now you have, and what an IUL is, it stands for Index Universal Life. And basically what that is a product where you can invest into or overfund an insurance policy, and now that extra cash that you have in there, you'd be able to take it out tax-free. That could be utilized for college savings, retirement, et cetera, right? So there's a number of different vehicles that you can kind of, pick and choose from, not saying which one is better or worse, right? But there are options out here that, would make sense for you to start kind of exploring and talk with your advisor about.
I hope you guys are listening, paying attention, and your wheels are kind of rolling right now. Like, if any of this is Chinese language to you right now, you need to go see my man Marcus Johnson, man, at Johnson Capital Planning. I promise you, he's gonna help steer you in the right direction. Okay, when you go out of town, you get your phone, you put the GPS in, right? Okay, then you need somebody to financially show you the roadmap to get to success. You don't know it for yourself. Look at your bank account right now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Come over here and see my man Marcus Johnson with Johnson Capital Planning. What's the best way you would say to teach kids money management?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, right? I think that it really just starts with exposure, right? Okay. So just showing them about, what a household looks like as far as what we're spending, right? And be honest and have open conversations about what things cost, right? And so if you start to give people or give your kids that idea that every time we do something, it costs money, now you're introducing that concept is that I just can't have, right? And so, I mean, you can even do it on a smaller scale, right? I remember, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and, of course, exposing it. This is real early that we're doing this, right? But basically what I did was we went to the store and I gave her $5, right? And then we just walked down the aisle, right? And so we walked down the aisle of toys and all that type of stuff, right? And so what I was trying to get her to do is understand that you got $5, right? And so all the stuff she started picking up, you can't afford that.
It's more than $5.
It's more than $5, right? Because now
I've done this before.
We understanding like, hey, listen, I can't get this.
I can't get that.
Right? And so now you're introducing the concept of, all right, I got to live or buy within the means that I have accessible for me today.
Right.
Right. And so, you got with kids, you can kind of make it a game. Right. I think a great tool in life is Monopoly. It's one of my favorite games. Right. I mean, it's just kind of like, I think Monopoly gives you all the tools you need to be successful.
Yep.
Right. But the problem is so many people are living their lives as if they was playing Monopoly just to pass go. Just think about if the only thing you did in that game,
I'm gonna get rich every time I get $200.
Is you ain't buying anything, right?
Yep.
It's just pass go. But so many people are living their lives like that, right? We're not investing. We're not, saving. We're not doing all of the things to make sure that we're getting consistent flows of income that's coming in outside of that paycheck, right? And so I think that there's so many lessons that can be found in the game of Monopoly that, that I think parents should. And here's the other thing too, is that every time that the subject of Monopoly comes up, everyone's like, oh my God, it's so long. But there's so many valuable lessons that you can kind of take from, sitting down and playing that game.
Yeah, it's a long term game. I even play with my kids now, and trying to make them understand this is 5, this is 10, and adding and the numbers and take away. Well, why they take away from me? Well, when you get older, people gonna start taking money from you. So that's good right there.
Yeah.
What would you say families should prioritize and how they should prioritize emergency savings fund or a retirement fund?
That's a great question. I think that, again, and I'm gonna keep saying this, and people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, why are you making everything so general, right?" But it's really just depends on your situation, and I'm gonna always say that, right? But the rule of thumb, and most financial advisors are gonna say that you want to have anything from 3 to 6 months, right, of savings, right? So that means that it's going to be liquid. Once you start getting over that 6 month kind of limit, then we need to start maneuvering that money into some vehicle that's going to work for us, right? And so what I'm starting to see with clients now is that once you get to that 3 to 6 limit, then they continue to put money into those vehicles, right? And so then I just tell people like, all right, let's start to allocate or reallocate that money into different vehicles that is going to do better on our money, right? So one of the basic principles that I like to talk to people about is called the Rule of 72. Right. And so I tell people that if you can understand the rule of 72, now you can get an understanding of how money works. And so basically what the rule of 72 says is I take the number 72, I divide it by the interest I'm receiving on my money, and that's how many years my money is going to take before it to double. So let's make it real. So if I gave you $1,000 a day and you was receiving 1% on your money, how many years is it going to take for your money to double? In this scenario, it's going to take 72 years for your money to double. Now, that is a long time for my money to double, right? Now, on top of that, there's this thing called inflation. Right. And so what's inflation? That's our purchasing power, right? Every year we live life, prices around us get more expensive on average by about 3%. So if I'm only receiving 1% on my money and prices are increasing by 3%, I'm actually trailing at a negative.
Yeah,
so every time I put my money in that savings that's not paying me at least 3%, I'm losing. Right. So the framework and the idea is that, all right, I need to start allocating money into vehicles that is going to at least get me 3% or better. So once I have that liquid savings of between 3 to 6 months, right, everything over top of that, it needs to be working for me. Right. Because I tell people all the time, if your money isn't working as hard as you are, you will be working for the rest of your life.
So how do you make your money work hard for you?
So that's a great question. Right.
I mean, people hear it all the time.
Yeah.
When you're not physically, taking a dollar here and say, do a push up.
Oh, well, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the dollar is not literally going, So how do you make the dollar work for you?
That's a great question, right? So I tell people that the money in this country was created 3 ways, right? Most people know one, and they always going to say it real estate, right? The next one is business. And then the last one is that stock market, right? So when we say the money is working for us, it's literally allocating into some type of account where we're able to buy into either the market, whether we're either to start to purchase in real estate, or we're either spending money into our business to grow our business, right? That's how our money is starting to work for us. And so normally when I'm talking about it, because, I will say I'm a little biased, right? I'm going to be more biased to the stock market, right? Just because that is the only one that you can literally invest in and not have to do anything else. So I literally can put my money in the market, right? With the help of your advisor, make sure you consult with your advisor.
Yes.
Right? But once I put the money in there, the market is going to do its thing. It's going to go up and down. Right. And on average, I mean, even if you was just, saying, look, I'm going to just, buy the market, which basically means I'm buying the S&P 500. Right. On average, it's going to get you between an 8 to 10% return. Right. So my money is at least beating inflation. I'm getting at least 8%. Right. And if
that's more than the 3.
That's more than the 3. And let's make it even simpler for simple math. Right. Because we just talked about the rule of 72.
Right.
So let's just say that the S&P is going to give me 10%. Right. So basically, if I take the rule of 72, that means it's going to take me 7.2 years to double my money. So if I put in $100,000 into an account or $10,000 in an account and it's getting me 10%, right? The rule of 72 says it's going to take 7 years for that money to double. That makes sense.
Spitting game on here, man. I hope y'all paying attention. Hope y'all paying attention. How to double his money, man. What? This is a good question. I had this question come up, and should married people combine their money together, or should they be in separate finances doing separate things?
It's a great question. Great question. And, you know, here's the reality, right? You got married.
Mm-hmm.
So technically it should be two becoming one, right?
Right.
Okay. So if we're doing it for the right reasons, two should become one.
Right.
Right. So not going to get biblical here. Right. But the idea should be is that we should start combining income, combining our money, right? Because it's that kind of thing that we talk about all the time around synergy, right? 1 + 1 could equal 3 if we're doing it right, right? So, you know, if we're going to still live independently outside, what's the point of us conjoining?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Right. Now, how do I make that into every, you know, practical behavior? I normally tell people that this is the way you should do it, right? Because it works. And again, everybody's situation is different, but here's what I see that works the most in my practice is that you have a joint account that we pay our household bills. And then each party, right, person in the relationship, they have their own individual accounts outside. All of the money flows into the general pot, and then you both pay yourselves an allowance, right? And so that way you still kind of have the idea of some independence, right? Because you can still do some things, and you know either side is not watching every transaction that you make that you might not agree with, right? But for the majority, everything goes into the main pot, right? And then we start separate. And then here's the thing: so sometimes once I tell people that, then they say, "Well, what's the percentage?" That's the conversation where I say it got to get specific to everybody's situation, right? Especially when you have, because I know what happens when you have two people that are married and the incomes are very different, right? So if you got one person making 100,000 and you got one person that's making 50, right? Sometimes you might feel like, all right, I'm putting more money in here, right? But I tell people to look at it as a percentage.
Yep,
because even if you making more, if we're doing the same percentage,
it's still the same. It's still the same hit.
Exactly, not equal gifts, but equal sacrifice, right? So that's kind of what we want to start looking at. That way, it still feels like we're both in this together, right? And I just think that, you know, by still living separately and doing everything independently, it's just kind of going against the grain of why we got married in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. So 3 accounts. 1 household, 2 independent, and then you guys can have a discussion about what those percentages and amounts should be. And here's the other thing: always go back and revisit it. It's okay.
So yeah, you don't have to keep it etched in stone.
You know what I'm saying? So
revisit
this may
in
be
6 months, see if it's working.
I normally tell people that every year you should be reanalyzing it and revisiting and monitoring your financial situation, right? Because things things change, right? You know, you may have had more kids, you may have gotten a promotion, you may have gotten fired, right? There's so many things that can happen within the course of 12 months. We just need to make sure that we're always updating and having honest conversations about, you know, our finances. And the other thing is that when it comes to this, I tell people that have honest and comfortable conversations. Never agree to doing anything that you're uncomfortable with, because that's always going to create tension. Right. So if we go into it with the mindset of, hey, you know, this is what I think is comfortable for me to be able to, you know, provide, or, you know, whatever it may look like. You know, I think that's going to have a better effect of just not saying anything, kind of going back to when we talked about in the last one, the avoidance thing. I think this is one of those situations where people avoid it as well. Right. But just having that conversation, being very transparent, I think will be, you know, very, very great for your relationship when it relates to the money issues.
Marcus Johnson is here on the show today, man. Thank you again for coming through, stopping through, giving us some information on financial planning for families. Okay, if you need some help, fellas, especially if you're the head of the household, you got kids and stuff like it, it's okay that you don't understand the information, okay? It's okay that you don't have the knowledge. What's not okay is to sit here and listen to us and not do nothing about it, okay? So, Marcus, how can they get in contact with you, get a consultation with you, get the ball rolling? Because I know your brain is thinking like, I got to put myself in a financial situation for my family. So how can they get in contact with you, bro?
Yeah, man, y'all can reach us at johnsoncap.com. You know, all of our information is there, so you can reach out to us on there, or you can shoot me an email directly at marcus@johnsoncap.com, and then our social media is Johnson Capital Planning on all of it, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
That's what's up, man. Hey, Marcus, thank you again for coming through, stopping us on the show
thank you for having
today.
me. Yes,
and
yes,
we'll see
yes.
you guys in the next video.